Manchester United 1, Arsenal 3. A disappointing defeat, but of course, there is always a story behind the scoreline. Now, in this video, we're gonna talk tactics, Rasmus Hojlund's debut, and Jadon Sancho. Let's analyze. Let's start by talking tactics. Now, first of all, we have to define what tactics actually mean. Now, a lot of people think that having superior tactics to the opposition guarantees victories. That's actually not always the case. There are so many factors that can affect your team's results, the results that you get. You know, there are so many factors, just like Robert the Bruce betraying William Wallace in the movie Braveheart in the Battle of Falkirk. It doesn't matter how good your tactics are, you can be as prepared, as ready as possible, but the outcome is dictated by different factors. For example, playing Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire as your centre-back pairing in 2023 as if you just stepped into a Stargate portal into the past. Having clueless owners, leeches like the Glazers. All of these factors can of course lead to you not getting the results. And of course, refereeing decisions, right? As was the case in this game. But the reason why I'm optimistic, despite the loss that felt like a sucker punch, I'm still optimistic because Erik ten Hag again has shown his nous as a tactical expert, a tactical genius. So in my pre-match tactical analysis, I've talked about how Arsenal are extremely good at pressing from the front foot. And based on previous evidence, I suggested that maybe we should not build up from the back. Well, actually, Erik ten Hag, what he did, he pulled an actual jiu-jitsu move, basically turning Arsenal's strengths into a weakness, turning their strength against them. Basically what he did is that he doubled down, on building up from the back. Now let's see what he did. So he used Andre Onana to his full capabilities over here. We had the back line that was pretty press resistant. So for example, here, as you can see from the build-up play, we were very patient in the build-up phase. Now look at this, Arsenal trying to identify those pressing triggers, but it doesn't matter. Our players are unfazed, as you can see. Onana playing as a third center back, pretty much, using Victor Lindelof, who of course is very comfortable with the ball at his feet. And the point of doing that is to actually drag the Arsenal players in order to put ourselves in this particular position, this position right here. Now, as you can see already, the Arsenal players are pretty committed into pressing us aggressively, pressing on the front foot, and then the ball goes towards Christian Eriksen. And now, as you can see, by the time Bruno Fernandes gets the ball, look at how many Arsenal players now find themselves behind the ball in the blink of an eye. We have 7 Arsenal players. That means there are 3 outfield players, and look at how much space there is. And of course, that enables us to take them by surprise and take the game to them. So basically, it's about giving them a false sense of security, attracting them deep into our own half, and then counter-attacking quickly because they are really weak in terms of transitions. But of course, you all know where this is going. This is not your first Scarlet Report video, and if it's your first, please make sure to subscribe to the channel because I always show stuff like this. This same move right here is exactly how we were able to score our first goal, the Marcus Rashford goal. Again, same thing. Christian Eriksen dropping in. Look how wide our center backs are. Lisandro Martinez over here and Aaron Wan-Bissaka with Lindelof over here. We are pulling them deep into our own half because we are trying to recreate that same move that we just did. Look how many Arsenal players are overcommitted. Same thing, dragging them out of position. Did you see, by the way, Declan Rice, how far he was? Look at this. That's Declan Rice. You see how far committed he is into the press, and then now an interception from Christian Eriksen, and then we find ourselves counter-attacking them. They are ill-prepared. As I've shown you, the game against Nottingham Forest, for example, highlighted Arsenal's weakness when it comes to transitioning from attack to defense. Ball towards Marcus Rashford. He's really dangerous when playing on the left-hand side like this, and then goal 1-0 Manchester United. Now, as far as tactics are concerned, this was it. This was Erik ten Hag taking the upper hand over Mikel Arteta because Mikel Arteta came in with Arsenal's strengths, pressing on the front foot. Based on the evidence from last season, what we've seen in the Emirates Stadium, Manchester United, you put pressure on them, within 2 or 3 passes, they lose the ball. That was not the case in this game. So Erik ten Hag has really drilled his players on this. The tactical briefings prior to the game were focused on this particular move. And actually what happened after that, after Arsenal equalized 1-1, what happened is that they actually could not dare press us again. Look how high we are into like close to their own half. Basically the game was played right here, because they could not press us again, because you cannot get burnt twice, right? They already got burnt once. They've learned their lesson. Step off this Manchester United, because we've come with a plan, basically dragging them deep into our own half and then attacking the empty spaces. And so that meant that Arsenal could not actually press us aggressively, and the game remained like this until around the 20 last minutes of the game, when Arsenal, of course, fueled with the home support, they took the game to us, trying to find that goal that would give them the 3 points. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, of course, is Rasmus Hojlund. Now, in that pre-match analysis, I talked about how one way to bypass the Arsenal press is to actually play long balls towards a target man. And the point here is that if you have a player who can use his body, like Hojlund, and I've identified this from when he was playing in Atlanta. I made my tactical analysis, player analysis, of Hojlund back in March, linking him to Manchester United, because we need a player like this. When you have a player like this, he can actually bring others into place. And for example here, he's bullying Gabriel, one of the most physical defenders in the league, and this is a 20-year-old Rasmus Hojlund. Look at how he's bullying him, gets the ball to Bruno Fernandes, and now by playing a long ball towards Hojlund, we can actually bring up our danger man, the Anthonys, the Bruno Fernandes, Eriksen, and Marcus Rashford. And this, of course, is going to lead to a Marcus Rashford chance. He could have done better with this. But this happened multiple times throughout, right after Hojlund was introduced into the game. I'm not going to show you every sequence. And then again, usually there is an opportunity cost that is attached to having physically imposing center forwards like Hojlund, is that usually they are slow. So the best way to defend against them is for the defenders to push higher up, so that even if you lose the duels, even if there is space behind you, those players cannot really exploit them. But that's not the case with Hojlund. Hojlund actually still allows you to do that. Casemiro wins the ball. This, look at Hojlund making the move, and then look at this. Look how fast he is. Extremely, extremely fast. So basically, there is no downside to Hojlund. He's big and tall, but he's not slow. And here, this should have been a penalty. Gabriel is not even playing the ball. He's playing the man. That should have been a penalty. But these are just some examples of the kind of skills that Hojlund can actually bring to Manchester United. So I'm highly optimistic about his addition to the Manchester United setup. More reasons to be optimistic. Let's talk about Sancho and about the progress that we've seen so far under Erik ten Hag. All right, so before we talk about Jadon Sancho, we have to talk about Erik ten Hag's journey at Manchester United up to this point. And for us to talk about Erik ten Hag's tenure at Manchester United, we have to use an analogy. Imagine an ice cube on a plate. You put it in a room that is freezing, minus 30 degrees. And your goal is to make that ice cube melt. The only way you can make it melt is by turning up the heat, by increasing the heat in the room. So basically what you start doing is you start gathering wood, starting fires. Now you're taking that temperature up from negative 30 degrees Celsius, to my American friends out there, negative 30 degrees to negative 20 degrees. The ice cube doesn't move. It's still solid. So you start gathering even more wood, starting an even bigger fire, doing jumping jacks like a maniac in the room. You take the temperature all the way to negative 1 degree, and yet the ice cube does not move. It doesn't melt. And everybody looks at you as if you were a failure. Because what everybody is seeing, the only thing they're focused on is that ice cube. How that ice cube is still solid and not liquid. But nobody is seeing that 29 degree progression that you've been through. From negative 30 to negative 1 degree Celsius. And then it goes up 1 degree. And the ice cube starts tearing up. There is a pool of water around it, and droplets of water are dropping from it. The ice cube is melting. Now finally, you've reached that tipping point. Now finally, people are seeing you as a success. And this happens in life in general. I'm sorry to get philosophical here, but it's important to the point that I'm trying to make. A lot of people fail, not because they are failures, not because they don't have it in them, but because they quit halfway through the process. They quit when it's negative 18 degrees, negative 7 degrees. They don't go all the way to that 0 degree Celsius, to that tipping point, for them to actually see the result of their hard work. And it's something that I have experienced personally. I've never told my friends or my family members that I have a YouTube channel, but then sometimes they discover me and they send me screenshots. Bro, is this you? Oh my God. And all they see is that 40K, 50K. But none of them see those first 15, 20 videos that I've made when I had 20 views. half of them were myself, watching myself through YouTube. Because everyone just sees that tipping point. Nobody sees the journey. And it's the same thing with Erik ten Hag. He's starting at minus 30 degrees. Did you forget how symbolic we were under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in his final season and Ralf Rangnick? Our club was run by Ed Woodward like a hot dog stand. And so Erik ten Hag is working in hard, tough conditions. And we are not going to be satisfied until we see the tipping point. That's how most Manchester United fans think. We have to see results right now. And if we don't, then no progress is made. But as I've shown you in this video, Erik ten Hag is showing that he can learn from his mistakes. When you compare how we performed against Arsenal away from home last season to this season, it's day and night. He actually tactically, outsmarted Arteta. Things didn't go our way for us to get the 3 points. Arsenal got them, fair play to them. But it doesn't change the fact that Erik ten Hag is showing that he's adapting and changing things positively. And it's not because the ice cube is not turning liquid right now that we are a failure. I've seen some YouTube videos yesterday. Already, some YouTube channels, some Manchester United fan channels, already calling for Erik ten Hag to be sacked. Already saying things like, is he the right man? Well, listen, you're free to talk and to share your opinion on some decisions that you disagree with on. Fine, that's your right as a fan. But to already call for his head, to call for the manager to be sacked, when you are halfway in the process, at minus 12, minus 11 degrees, to me is completely unwise. And we cannot, needless to say, that a lot of managers, including Pep Guardiola and Klopp, have started from much warmer conditions. When Guardiola came to Manchester City, they already won the league title 2 years before him. They had a title-winning squad, a highly talented squad. And he had a director of football and a sporting director and a managing director who knew him from his time in Barcelona. They knew what kind of football he wants to play, what kind of players he wants. And they bought him every single target. They brought him a goalkeeper, Claudio Bravo, and the next season, after he didn't work out, they spent £35 million getting Ederson without having to sell Bravo. Erik ten Hag, on the other hand, has to still play Anthony Martial, even though he's limping on the pitch. He cannot get a centre back because he needs to sell Harry Maguire first. And these are the conditions where Erik ten Hag is performing. And we cannot deny that. But what we have to know is that every Manchester United manager will always ultimately have to start from that negative 30 degrees and work his way up until that tipping point, that 0 degrees Celsius. Which leads me now to Jadon Sancho. For us to reach that tipping point, we have to change the culture at the club. Let's talk about Sancho for a minute. When he complained about being made a scapegoat. Here's the thing. Let's agree on something. Erik ten Hag did not put Jadon Sancho aside on day one. He started him. He played him quite often when he took over. Even though Jadon Sancho was not impressive under Ralf Rangnick and under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And yet Erik ten Hag played him. And then around November, during the World Cup in Qatar, what did Erik ten Hag do? Well, he sent him to Holland to work with Erik ten Hag picked coaches and psychiatrists to work on his physical and mental issues. And then when he came back, what did Erik ten Hag do? He played him. Not only did he play him in pretty much every game until the end of the season, he even played him in different positions. You remember when he played him through the middle to try him in that number 10 position because maybe it suits his attributes better? So from a manager's perspective, Erik ten Hag has tried everything. Everything. But at a certain point, the players have to step up. If you are given so many chances at a great club like Manchester United, you have to have that intrinsic motivation to make it as a star in this club, to show your worth. Because ultimately, when you are a football player, your talking is not done on social media, it's done on the pitch. And Jadon Sancho has been really quiet on the pitch. And you also have to understand that press conferences, because a lot of people would say, yeah, but Mr. Scarlet Report, Erik ten Hag should not have said that publicly. No. Press conferences for managers, they are a way of communicating with their players. Erik ten Hag, by saying that, he's literally telling every Manchester United player, I'm watching you. Try your best. Increase the standards or you're out. And he's also telling young players like Hannibal Mjebri and Dan Gore, who were on the bench at the expense of Jadon Sancho against Arsenal, If you try your best, I'm gonna play you. And let's not forget, Marcus Rashford. Last year, there was a game against Wolves, right before Wolves. He was dropped because he was late to a tactical briefing. And how did Marcus Rashford respond? He responded by going on a run when he scored pretty much in every single game. That's what you expect from a professional who earns £350,000 a week. Not the meek response that Jadon Sancho is doing. So on this issue, I am 100% with the manager. For us to turn that ice cube from a solid to liquid, we have to change the culture. And it starts by standing up to players like Jadon Sancho. It starts by standing up to players like Cristiano Ronaldo. It starts by making tough decisions on players that are lovable by Manchester United fans, but who don't fit the style that we want to go with forward, like David De Gea. Tough decisions have to be made. And so trusting the process, trusting Erik Ten Hag. So anyway, guys, that's all for this video. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Please share with me in the comment section what you think about what I talked to you about in this video. Up until next time, cheers.